businessman, friend, father, Tansy, Lord Tanswell, the Housewife's Choice, Bobby the Bear Trap, Steve Tanswell. We love you, we miss you, and thank you.
Hello everybody and welcome to another, because of the way we've recorded this, I will have had COVID and then got rid of it and then got COVID again, episode of Poddywood. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Hester, and with me as always is...
That is such a bullshit way to start the Christmas episode of Poddywood. So I'm going to reword that for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, my name is Andrew Roger Carson, and Merry Christmas, everybody. Apart from Steve, the miserable tit, it's just droning on about COVID while we're all trying to have a nice time.
The problem is, this being the British nation, we will all be droning on about COVID. It's part of what we do. We find something to complain about and then we latch onto it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's one of those things that has affected us. This entire season has been kind of the ill season, I guess. Because straight after we did Barbara Koppel's episode, I started coming down with this really, really bad cold that turned into a really, really bad infection. And God, you'll hear over the various past episodes of how terrible it actually was on some occasions. So continuity is a bitch on this show, I'm telling you.
Oh, the amount of coughing of yours I had to cut out over this series has just been insane.
Well, unfortunately, we had a mention on Patrick Reynolds' episode where someone actually said you guys were so stoned at the beginning of that.
I wish.
And yes, don't we wish? I'm going to clear the record on that straight away. No, I was on incredibly hard antibiotics, which knocked me out. But I was there like, you know what? We still need to get this show out. We've committed to it and we'll do it. I did not feel up to doing it. So whenever Steve would make me laugh, I had a really raspy cough and I couldn't stop laughing. And you're lucky that Steve actually edited out the parts where I'm practically coughing up a lung. Right? So no, we weren't stoned. We are actually professionals at what we do on this show.
Yeah, professionals hides whiskey.
Yes. Yes. Well, if we had a whiskey in front of us, that's a different story because it is bloody freezing in this country at the moment and it's dank and miserable and it's foggy outside. It looks like Silent Hill. So
Merry Christmas!
So Merry Christmas. So to the people that believed that we were actually stoned at the beginning of Patrick's episode, no, we were not. It was just one of those episodes where everything was going wrong at the beginning. We were both feeling rough. And we committed to it and got the beginning of it recorded. So yes, with that in mind, it's a very special Christmas week.
We've got Merry Santa himself, John Ashton, going to be popping in later.
Oh yes, but before we get on to that visitor, let's talk about the other visitor. And that would be the What's in the Box from last week, Steve.
Yes. Now, before we do get into the actual movie, which is called The Visitor, which is a 2007 movie from director Tom McCarthy. I just want to note something else that came up when I put The Visitor into IMDb, and you can check this yourself. I am not making this up. There is a page on IMDb for a film called The Visitor from Planet Omicron.
You are shitting me.
I am not.
Oh my God.
I am looking at it right now. It looks like a terrible movie that someone's made in their garage for about a $5. It's from 2013.
Oh my God, this is actually Sally Kirkland's in it.
No, this gets better. An alien comes to Earth with a botanical virus, but a gutsy Arizona widow wins him over with her garden fresh cooking. And then tries to topple a corrupt government that put him up to it. Oh my God, is that just like a poster child for the anti-vax movement right there, or is that just me? Some housewife in Arizona going, no, you don't need to get any of them there antibiotics. I don't know what this accent is. You don't need to get...
This movie was from 2013.
Yeah.
And it... What? That's just blown my mind.
Do it.
I cannot believe this.
Go onto IMDb, look up The Visitor from Planet Omicron. It looks just dreadful.
And for you people who have Roku, or more specifically the TV channel Plex, you can actually watch it on Plex, which that's just absolutely nuts,
isn't it?
That's very nuts. Oh, I don't know how we can recover from that, but anyway, let's go and talk about the movie that you were supposed to watch.
Yeah, it's a good job I was recording that. Right, well, The Visitor is, like I say, it's a 2007 movie by a guy called Tom McCarthy. It was also written by Tom McCarthy. It's about a rather staid, kind of boring academic called Walter, played by Richard Jenkins, who comes back to his New York apartment to stay a few days while delivering a talk at a conference, and finds out that this couple have moved in with no kind of idea of who the hell he is. And then the three of them start to form this friendship. Now, could have gone a lot of ways with a premise like that. You know, you get the feeling that if someone like Jim Carrey had gone into that, even though I know that he has done an awful lot of drama, you could see that being like quite a zany comedy, something that was a bit off the wall. You could also see it being used as the basis for some kind of horror film as well. But in this case, it's actually quite a low-key, warm character study of these three people and how they're each affecting each other's lives, because you've got, like I say, you've got Richard Jenkins as Walter, who's recovering from the death of his wife. Then you've got Slyman, I'm not sure how you pronounce his surname, as Tarek, and then as his girlfriend, Danai Gurira.
Who's amazing.
Yes, who many people will know as Okoye in the Black Panther and the later Avengers movies.
Yes.
Now, one of the most kick-ass females I've ever seen on screen. She terrifies me. And Walter starts to open up, particularly to Tarek, and they start to share this love of music and drums. And then partway through the movie, due to a tiny, tiny little incident in New York subway station, Tarek is found to be an illegal immigrant and is taken away to a detention center. I like, more than anything else, the fact that it didn't suddenly pull anything bigger than that out from its bag. Because this was 2007. This was obviously 6 years after 9/11. So they could have gone down, he was actually a wanted terrorist route, or they were plotting something else, an attack. No, everything in this feels low-key, it feels real, and it feels earned. It doesn't need the stakes to be any higher. The stakes are realistic. And for many people, realistic can just be something as simple as wanting to stay in one place. And I really enjoyed it, which, if you look at the way that I reacted to Shotgun Stories a few weeks ago, and that had a very low-key performance with low-key stakes, but with this, there seems to be an awful lot more heart and emotion, not just from Richard Jenkins' character as Walter, who does seem like a fish out of water a few times, but particularly with Tarek, and he just seems to have this warmth for life, and it is infectious. And there's many scenes of him and Walter playing in a drum circle in Central Park, which just kind of it taps into something that's very kind of nice and primal and human, which I liked. And it was something that I thought Shotgun Stories was missing. It was too flat. But this,
too vague for you.
You need to have the yin to go with the yang. If it's all one-sided, then it loses any of the brightness, and if it's too bright, then it loses any of the darkness. And as far as this is concerned, I think that the performances were really nice across the board. Let's not forget Haim Abbas. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names, I really am.
Another fantastic performance.
Yeah, who plays Tarek's mother, and this little group, this tiny little ensemble group, just plays so nicely with each other. There are, like I say, there are no elevated stakes. There's nothing that is at risk apart from these individuals' lives and what they mean to each other, and how we are as human beings one humanity, and that what we do as a government or as a nation doesn't necessarily reflect who we are as the people of that nation. And I know I really like this movie. I thought it was quite touching, and it just made me yearn to go back to New York again. Just seeing it like that, I thought it was a really enjoyable and warm film.
It is, and to Tom McCarthy. I mean, obviously, a lot of people know him as the writer of stuff like Spotlight, more prominently, and he's a producer as well on such movies like Win-Win, which is an incredible movie, really good. I love the way that he really explores the kind of contrast of Richard Jenkins is amazing in this movie.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Richard Jenkins, and I always have been. And seeing him actually stepping up and not being a supporting character, but actually being, center stage is amazing. And it's just a wonderful dynamic, and it's a wonderfully told story. It is just a real film. You come away glad you watched.
Yeah, even though the ending, spoilers, even though the ending of it isn't what you hope it will be, it feels like it's what it should be. You want it to be something more. You want there to be this wonderful happy ending, but in reality, that's not really what will happen. And I think even in spite of that, there's also a lot of heartfelt nature to it. And yeah, Richard Jenkins. There were times when I thought that he was channeling Jack Nicholson in About Schmidt, that kind of very almost blank expression that's just going around with the craziness. But then there are these little moments like where he's trying to explain about his writing over dinner, and you can see the facade just ever so slightly break down, and he kind of reels it back in, and you get the feeling that there's a man underneath that's dealing with an awful lot of pain.
Yeah, it is. It's true compliment to a brilliantly written script, brilliantly written story. And I've got full praise for The Visitor. I think, as a movie that you had never even heard of before, I brought it up. I'm glad you've actually found some real enjoyment from it.
Yeah, well, I've noticed this on a few of the movies, and you say that I usually end up slagging off a lot of the movies which we get through, and that's not entirely true. I try to be as objective as possible, and sometimes that means picking up on things which I shouldn't do. But I have noticed it with a few of the movies that I've seen where I kind of stop taking notes and just start watching the film. And I think this was one of those movies where I did just stop taking notes after a while. And
just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. So would you recommend The Visitor? Is it worthy of its freshness?
Yes. I don't think it's going to be particularly enjoyable if you are too heavily into your action movies. If you think that the Fast and Furious 9 is the pinnacle of cinema, then you're probably not going to enjoy the slow pace of this. But if you can sit down and just enjoy the humanity of it, then yeah, you'll definitely enjoy it.
Well, okay. Can't say fairer than that. Well, I guess before we wheel in our returning guest, we have a couple of anniversaries to speak of.
Watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
And doesn't a Western theme go so well for Christmas week?
I know it does.
We should have at least recorded at least one Christmas tune.
What, should we just do it the way that they do it in a lot of TV shows where they just have the ordinary tune, but they have someone playing with sleigh bells over the top of it?
Yeah. If we can get a mix where we can just get some sleigh bells over that Western theme that doesn't sound like stirrups, I guess we'll be all right. Anyway, we actually have 5 this week.
5? All right. Let's crack on then.
Okay. Can you believe, Steve, that 40 years ago this week, a movie known as Rollover was released? You've never heard of it?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
No. Rollover was directed by Alan J. Pakula. who some may know as the director of Sophie's Choice, All the President's Men, or Presumed Innocent, if you preferred the 90s. And it was a movie that starred Jane Fonda as she was the wife of this murdered petrochemical chairman. And she teams up with a banker who's played by Chris Christopherson. And they investigate how it all links to some financial scheme that is leaning towards a global economic collapse. And this was in 1981. And it's incredibly relevant. I've watched it again this past week, and I was like, oh my God, this was like really current stuff for a movie that was done 40 years ago.
Right. So at any point in that, do they get lots of people into a bed and the little one says roll over?
No.
Okay.
But in a way, it was a flop. It was a box office flop. It was a shame because it was the second flop for Chris Christopherson after the Heaven's Gate fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
This was produced by Jane Fonda back when she was starting to produce movies. I think this might have been maybe the third of her 5 produced movies over that period. Because I know the China Syndrome was one, and I think that was before this. And this was another one, and I think they went on to do On Golden Pond as well. And they were all brilliant movies, but this one it wasn't a hit at the time. And I think it was following in the trend of those movies like The Parallax View and I've forgotten the name of it. There was a few of these paranoid conspiracy thrillers back in the day, Manchurian kind of like, type of movies.
Day of the Condor or whatever it
was. Yeah, Day of the Condor, or 3 Days of the Condor even.
3 Days of the Condor, yeah.
That had a small cameo from Bill Daley, apparently.
Really?
Yes, but apparently he's out of shot. But, Jesus Christ.
Oh,
you
sorry,
just
Bill.
Write it, really. No. Sorry, Bill. But that won't be Bill. But yeah, one of the biggest stories I think I remember from this was Alan J. Pakula. And we were talking on next week's episode, you'll hear, we talk about the infamous Gene Hackman, Richard Donner Mustache incident. Well, on this one, there was one with Alan J. Pakula and Chris Christopherson, because Chris Christopherson really wanted to keep his beard, his iconic beard. And Alan J. Pakula was like, nope, you got to shave it. And he's like, well, I don't want to shave it. So Alan J. Pakula said, okay, if you can find any banker who has a beard like that and provide proof, I'll let you keep it. And Chris Christopherson couldn't find one, so he shaved it.
It's also known as the Fokker defense, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yes, Rollover, it's a really good film, actually. It is a really good film. It's one worthy of rediscovering. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I think I had seen it many, many years ago. I think it was on BBC One when it first kind of came out on terrestrial TV, and didn't really understand it back then. But oh my God, you understand it even more nowadays. So that is Rollover at 40. Can you believe, Steve, this is more up your alleyway? 35 years ago this week, The Golden Child was released.
Ah, you're right. This is more at my alley. I like this movie. And this was a bit of a flop as well, wasn't it, if I remember correctly?
It was not a flop. It was a hit. I mean, this was Eddie Murphy's first movie back for 2 years, because he kind of took 2 years off after Beverly Hills Cop, and came back with The Golden Child, if I'm right. I believe so. And Eddie trashed this movie. He did. When he was doing press for Coming to America, he really trashed it, saying, oh, you know, the script was so much better than the movie. And I think they pinned a lot of the blame on the director, Michael Ritchie, who was a great director. He directed Fletch. You know, he was also the writer of Cool Runnings, which is just an iconic movie. But originally, the director was going to be George Miller.
Oh, of Mad Max fame.
Of Mad Max fame. Yes. The story goes, according to George Miller, he showed up to Eddie Murphy's house to talk about it, and Eddie kept him waiting for 4 hours, and George Miller said, "F this," and left. But what's also interesting about it is it was also originally supposed to be a Mel Gibson movie instead of an Eddie Murphy movie. Mel Gibson was approached. Apparently, he then turned it down. So I wonder if this was going to be like the first American Mel Gibson, George Miller type movie. I think there's also a bit of truth in the fact that John Carpenter was also approached. And you can kind of see that because it does have a very John Carpenter style feel to it.
It does. It's got that almost kind of Big Trouble in Little China kind of.
And the music
touch.
is very John Carpenter-y as well. The other interesting thing about this is Eddie Murphy turned down a role in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home to do this movie.
Really?
Really. Apparently he was going to be this little green glowing rock that talks to Spock throughout the movie. You may laugh. I guarantee you that was on the cards. But so yeah, The Golden Child. It's one of those cult movies that it's not very good. You know, it's not a really good movie. I watched it again recently. It was like, this is kind of full of holes, really. But at the same time, they've got a goof, like an outtake or a bluffed line, I should say, from Charles Dance that they leave in the movie.
Which one's that?
And it's where he's trying to say Ayanti dagger. And Charles Dance pauses after he says I because he's going to screw it up. He goes, I want the Ayanti dagger. And they left it in. Clearly left it in. And that has always stuck with me about this movie, apart from the fact that you've got the ever reliable James Hong in there.
Randall Tex Cobb as well, who was just in pretty much all of those movies in the 80s.
Oh, yeah, he was. And in the Hell's Angels biker scene, the biker that gets beat up by Eddie Murphy for information was Michael Douglas's brother, which is very apparent when you actually watch the scene again. Because it's like, how could you not tell that that is not his brother?
To be honest, it's been a while since I've seen this, so I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, and the standout was Charlotte Rae, absolutely beautiful Tahitian beauty, who's only 18 years old, which is very weird when you look at it because she looks a lot older. But her acting is not the greatest in it. I think she's dubbed. I don't know why, but when I was actually watching it, I was like, she sounds like she's been dubbed in some scenes, especially. But The Golden Child for me, I think it's a guilty pleasure for me because I admit that it's not a great movie, but I still own it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fascination with that is. This was like the movie, or one of the movies before Eddie Murphy started adopting that really fast-talking Eddie Murphy style that then was just everywhere. You know, he was still very subdued and talking at his normal pace. And then for Beverly Hills Cop 2, suddenly he was like fast-talking all the time. I think we had touched on this before.
Yeah, we did when, funnily enough, when John was on the first time.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
That's funny enough. But yeah, this was the movie before Beverly Hills Cop 2 and him becoming like the biggest box office star in Hollywood at the time. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think Eddie Murphy was the number one. It's hard to envision anyone else around that time frame who was. Okay. So yeah, The Golden Child is 35 years old this week. Can you believe, Steve?
I don't know.
25 years ago this week, and this is still fresh in the memory, Star Trek First Contact was released.
Oh, yes. I've seen that one. I like that one.
No glowing rock in it, but, you know.
No, but this is Patrick Stewart going nuts with a Tommy gun.
Yes. No freewheeling William Shatner going down a ravine. This was the first outing.
Yeah, that's far.
Yes.
No further.
Yes, exactly. Directed by Jonathan Frakes, who we all know as Will Riker, who we all also know as director of Thunderbirds, who we also know as that fact or fiction show on TV where, was it magicians revealing their tricks?
No, that was a different one. No, on the Magician's Tricks one, that was Mitch Burleigh from the X-Files.
Oh my God, yeah, it was Mitch.
Yeah.
I'm Mitch Burleigh. That's how you say your name.
Yes.
I was calling you Burleigh for so long.
I'm Mitch Burleigh. You hear that? Burleigh. Write it down phonetically. Burleigh.
But this was the movie that introduced the Borg to the big screen. Just the amazing turn by Alice Krieg from Sleepwalkers, funnily enough. She was iconic as the Borg Queen, really amazing, really seductive. There's some nice little cameos in there. There's no Whoopi Goldberg, strangely enough, but we do get Murdoch from the A-Team.
Yes, because he was in the series as Reginald Barclay.
Barclay, that's the
Barclay.
guy. Yeah.
And funnily enough, speaking of Alice Krige, she came back towards the end of Voyager's run, and she reprised the role of the Borg Queen. Don't ask me how or why, considering it was a completely different person that got taken over, but yeah. So she came back for that one.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I know that all of those Borg sets that were used, they were never really happy with the ones in the Next Generation series because, they all kind of looked a bit tacky. But when the ones they used for this movie actually got used moving forward in all of the Star Trek series. So the sets and the costumes and all that were used. And there was a big switch in this movie, actually, because originally it was actually supposed to be Patrick Stewart helping James Cromwell and all that on the ground. And it was supposed to be Jonathan Frakes. It was supposed to be Will Riker on the Enterprise doing that role. And
I can't see that somehow.
Yeah. But it was Patrick Stewart who objected to it and basically told them to swap it around. So Picard gets to be the action hero, which is strange considering Jonathan Frakes is directing it. But maybe it worked out better that way for Jonathan Frakes directing, because I think it was his first movie as well. Yeah. I think he directed parts of the TV series.
Yeah, he had done.
Yeah, so...
No, that makes sense, because if it is going to be your first major feature film, then you want to be behind the camera as much as you can. And not only that, but given the storyline with Picard and the Borg in the TV series, having him go up against it makes a lot more sense, because the stakes are more personal then.
Yeah, very true. And I think all of the cast actually preferred this one. I think they said this was their favourite movie to make. And this is the most action-packed Star Trek movie, I think, out of all of them.
Before J.J. Abrams, at least.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't see that because of all the lens flares. But it's amazing how many lens flares is in one movie. I would have failed film school if I'd have done that.
Yeah, if you want to recreate the joys of watching the original J.J. Abrams Star Trek film, then just listen to the Star Trek theme on Spotify while shining a lamp into your face.
Yeah. I'm going to go on the record here. I love this movie. I really did. And it is one of the seminal Star Trek movies you can actually put on for people who aren't Star Trek fans, and they'd enjoy it. I think Patrick Stewart is great in it. Alice Kriege's great in it. Brent Spiner, Data, is great in it. And it's just fun. This was before it got sexed up and all stuff like that, but this was actually fun. And it still holds up today. If this was on Christmas Day, I'd watch it.
Oh, yeah. Very happily.
Something I wouldn't watch, Steve.
Hmm.
Can you believe 10 years ago this week, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows was released?
You're not a fan of this one?
No. I don't know. It's not a Guy Ritchie thing, right? It is not a Guy Ritchie, because I really like a lot of Guy Ritchie stuff.
It's a studio-mandated sequel that Guy Ritchie just happened to be directing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, some people say it's better than the first one, and I think it's just as good in the fact that I didn't enjoy either of them. It's got so bad, it's like you could easily paint Doolittle as the third Sherlock Holmes movie. And I know a lot was put in, obviously, because of all of this slow motion work that was put in, done by Gavin Free, by the way, who worked for Rooster Teeth, the slow-mo guys on YouTube. Little free shout out for you there. Sorry,
those bits do look really, really good.
They do, and I don't know what it is about it. I mean, it was fast-tracked, all right, from what I understand. Warner Brothers did fast-track the sequel, and I'm sure Bill would corroborate if that was right or not. And it forced Guy Ritchie to drop out of directing Lobo, which would have been awesome. And Robert Downey Jr. had to drop out of Cowboys and Aliens, which would have helped that movie, in my view. I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me. And Sherlock Holmes, you can either take him or leave him. I still say that the 1983 version of The Hound of the Baskervilles was one of the best Sherlock Holmes things I ever saw, with Martin Shore and Denham Elliott. But I don't know about Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. It just,
Yeah,
It just didn't click with me.
I'm a bit of a fan of the original stories.
Yeah.
Just recently, I was re-listening to Stephen Fry narrate the entire Holmes canon on audiobook, which is just hog's heaven. Listening to that, going to and fro in the car, it was just being wonderful. But I think the one thing which got me about both of these movies is that they kind of feel like Sherlock Holmes fan fiction.
Yes, that's actually a good way to put it.
I mean, they take little tiny elements from the original stories. Like there's a brief shot of Holmes as syringe, his little cocaine. It's a cocaine syringe. He doesn't use heroin. He uses cocaine because that was back when he used to inject cocaine. But there's nothing really that makes it Holmes apart from the fact that he has all these deductive powers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like Holmes. It doesn't really look properly Victorian either. It's kind of the stylized idea of what someone would think the Victorian period should be, and it doesn't work well.
No, and to be honest, I blame it for that version of King Arthur that came out afterwards.
I saw that when I was in Mexico, and I went in with zero expectations and came out thinking,
Well, at least it lived up to your expectations.
Yeah.
But it's also responsible for that bloody Taron Egerton version of Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Which should have been... Whoever greenlit that should be taken outside and set on fire. That was horrible. It was just horrible. And to be honest, we weren't exactly crying out for another Robin Hood. And I suppose the good news is we'll never, ever get another one. Thanks to that.
The sad news is we also won't get that Sheriff of Nottingham version that was supposed to be doing the rounds before Ridley Scott did his one.
Oh, they were going to do a Sheriff of Nottingham one with Rickman.
No, the whole idea was that instead of it being like a traditional Robin Hood movie, they were going to be doing it all from the Sheriff of Nottingham's point of view, and he was kind of like trying to catch a killer. And Robin Hood was there in the background, and he was like the chief suspect. And then as time went on, it turned out that he wasn't actually the killer. And then the two of them joined forces to work out who was the killer. And then Ridley Scott came in with Russell Crowe and just went, "No, let's get rid of all that. Let's just make it into a Robin Hood. There you go. I'm from Yorkshire, but I sound like I'm from London." Yeah.
And wasn't that a joy? That was kind of underwhelming. That version of Robin Hood. So I actually went to see that on the same day I went to see Iron Man 2, and I can't believe that I walked out with Iron Man 2 as the better movie.
Yeah.
But in fairness, Iron Man 2 is Iron Man 2. You know what you're getting with that. With Robin Hood, I think a lot of people were just saying, "Oh, we've got Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves as the best like Robin Hood that we can all envision." As no, it's not. How do you know Errol Flynn? Have you watched The Adventures of Robin Hood? Because, that film that dates far back, where the action is speeded up so fast in those fight scenes, it looks like Errol Flynn is speeding his tits off.
The good thing, though, about that Kevin Costner one was Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
"Oh, yes. I'm going to cut your heart out with a spoon."
It comes to something when the last good Robin Hood movie was Robin Hood Men in Tights. And it was. I don't care what anyone says. That is the last time I have enjoyed a Robin Hood movie. There's also that version out there with Patrick Bergin in that came out in the same year as Prince of Thieves and got absolutely buried.
Nobody remembers that one.
5 people saw it, and it was filmed at Beeston Castle of all places.
Where?
Beeston Castle and Peckthornton Castle. They filmed that movie.
Good.
Because I remember someone at school was basically saying, "Oh yeah, we saw Kevin Costner and all that. They're filming Robin Hood," and I was like, "You lying sack of shit! That's the wrong movie." You saw Patrick Bergin. You saw Uma Thurman for 5 minutes, although you don't know who she is. It's like that 1492, which was the one about Christopher Columbus, absolutely burying another movie called Christopher Columbus: The Discovery that had Marlon Brando in it, released the same year. That's when the movies competing, 2 movies compete in the same year. It's the Bug's Life ants effect.
God, you can tell how really into the Sherlock Holmes movies we were that we've gone completely off topic and started talking about Robin Hood.
I'd rather watch Robin Hood than Sherlock Holmes. I'll tell you. It just didn't do it for me. I don't know. Getting back to Sherlock Holmes, there's no mystery that I'm not a fan. There you go. Case closed. What's next, Watson? Well, I'll tell you what's next. Something I think we would appreciate, because it is 30 years ago this week that The Addams Family was released. Raul Julia's personal favourite role of all time.
Yes. What a flick.
Yes. And there's never been a better Gomez Addams than Raul Julia.
It was also Barry Sonnenfeld's first movie, though.
Was it his first?
I think that was his first, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously he directed in my view, far superior Addams Family Values. I actually prefer the second one than the first one. Because it's, the first one's dark, but the second one's just really dark. It's all about trying to murder a baby. How much darker can you get for a kid's movie? As well as, a woman just like trying to murder her new spouse. It's dark as hell and has some of the greatest jokes in it. But the idea for the Addams Family being remade around this time was all down to Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin was the head of production at 20th Century Fox at the time. And the story goes that he was riding in a van with a bunch of other executives from the company after a movie screening. And apparently one of them started singing the theme tune, and every single one of them suddenly started humming along to it or singing to it. And then the light bulb went off. They all kind of looked at each other, I guess, and then the next day they proposed that they make a movie, and they all went and did it.
Well, there we go.
And that is the story. And it's so well done. I remember I went to see this at the cinemas, not knowing what to expect, because the Addams Family wasn't really big in my growing up.
No, I mean, I didn't get to see the TV series until after the film had come out, and it started to get repeated on BBC.
Yeah, it started going around on Channel 4.
Wherever it was, yeah.
And when it makes like the prime time at 6 o'clock, that they're expecting something big of it. No, it was just a really fun movie. There was some fantastic jokes in it, and it had the game that came out that was questionable.
Did you mean the one for the SNES?
Yes.
Oh, God,
Not only was it on the SNES, I had it on the Amiga. That's how far back it goes.
Oh, Ocean Entertainment, which
yes,
were actually based in Manchester.
Were they really?
They were, yeah. Yeah, they were pretty much...
Oh, well, of course you'd know that.
They operated more or less on a quantity over quality thing, so they just snapped up as many licenses as they could do. RoboCop, Terminator, Lethal Weapon, and they just shat out as many subpar games as they possibly could do.
Oh yes, they did. They did do a lot. I know that before Angelica Houston, I think Olivia Hussey was going to be the original choice, and it would be great to have Olivia come on and actually confirm that. I know she is on my Facebook. She knows of these episodes, so you can let us know. I think Cher really lobbied for that role as well.
Yeah, I can see that.
Strangely enough, would have worked. But she would have wanted to sing a song for the soundtrack. And things must have been really bad if they choose.
Sing the theme tune.
Things had to be bad if they went with MC Hammer over Cher.
Oh, no.
The last thing MC Hammer ever did, apart from that Hammerman cartoon. Anthony Hopkins also turned down the role of Uncle Fester. Do you know?
I did not know that, no.
No. Which might have been the smartest move, considering that he was doing Silence of the Lambs right around this time and was about to win an Oscar.
Yes, that would have made it a little bit too creepy. You needed the manic energy of Christopher Lloyd to kind of counterbalance that craziness. And I think just going, hello, Wednesday.
Yeah.
I've got your doll's head, Wednesday. Just pushes it over the top a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Also, and speaking of Barry Sonnenfeld, he had to do a little
the cameo.
Yeah, on the model train set. I was wondering if you were going to pick up on that.
Oh yeah, I knew about that one. Yeah.
But yes, he has that little cameo of looking out of the window and seeing like Gomez Adams just laughing. It's brilliant. And considering it was his first movie, I know that he felt a tremendous amount of pressure because it was a big movie, and he was also kind of dealing with I think it was sciatica. I think he had sciatica during when he was actually filming.
I can sympathise with that one.
Yeah, and as well as dealing with that, I know that he did actually end up having to shut the movie down for a couple of days, which must have been terrifying for him because his wife needed major surgery in New York City, and he had to go and do that. You imagine that on your first movie, having all that pressure. You're already in agony. You're concerned about the budget of the movie because it was a huge budget for a first-time movie, and then you've got to go and do that. And you know what? He did an amazing job of it.
Yeah, proper bang-up job.
Yeah, and I think his agent was, Barry Sonnenfeld's agent must have been really relieved that he didn't have to lick that carpet. Oh, do you not know the story?
I don't know that story, no.
Okay. Barry Sonnenfeld's agent basically said to Barry that he would lick a carpet if he couldn't get him a directing job within the year. And he managed to find him this job in less than a year.
Good.
So Scott Rudin apparently let it be known to Sonnenfeld that he wasn't the first choice, as he was kind of putting a different director's name on the back of the chair every morning. So you had everyone from like Joe Dante, Terry Gilliam, of course, David Lynch, which would have been a weird one. And of course, you can't escape the Addams Family without Tim Burton's name coming up, because for a long time I actually thought it was a Tim Burton movie until I realised
it's got that look and feel to it, just all over it, hasn't it?
Exactly. And what's interesting now, I mean, we've got Rob Zombie remaking The Monsters, which is coming out, I think, next year. And that's going to be interesting because it's all just going to be rape and death and drugs and people getting their head blown off. And it's like, geez, who's doing the groovy ghoulies? That's what I want to know.
Probably the same people that did that Banana Splits movie.
Oh, I've heard about that. I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, me neither. It's like a kid's cartoon where people are getting ripped apart and then cut in half by carnival games and stuff like that, and it's proper like splatterfest. But he's got these Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters in it. It's like, what the hell?
And you might also interesting to know this was among the last handful of movies that Orion Pictures did. It basically started the financial troubles for the studio right when this was going, which is why Orion ended up getting sold to MGM.
Right.
And also the reason probably why, and I think Paramount had a bit of co-financing in the movie, but this movie has never been released on DVD in the UK ever.
No, we've discussed this one in the past. It's been released over here. It wasn't released in North America.
It wasn't available over here because I searched for it everywhere, and the only
I've seen it on DVD. I've seen it on the shelves in HMV.
Oh, well, this is a source of debate.
Yes.
But yes, Addams Family was released 30 years ago this week, as well as the Razzie award-winning MC Hammer song of Adam's Groove.
Too legit to quit.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, God. That song's going to haunt me tonight. Yeah. And yeah, it's not as good as Addams Family Values, in my view.
No, there's your view.
I mean, that's the 5 anniversaries this week, and I think it's time to bring in an old favourite to the show, making his 3rd appearance. This is a record, I think. I think he's the record holder as this being the 3rd appearance to talk about the 1990s.
Well, no, he's coming up against Bill now.
Well, we better let him in. Well, it's Christmas week, and we look for the gift that keeps on giving, or in our case, the guest that keeps on coming back, which we really like. And no, it's not Bill Daly, although we send out our love to Bill Daly. Our most well-received guest in the history of Poddywood so far has been John Ashton, who we've covered an extensive career only up until the end of the 80s so far for 2 previous episodes. And upon those episodes being released, everyone just wants more of the Ashton. So we listened and we decided that our 2021 end Christmas special with Jon talk about his time in the 1990s. And when we left off, we just discussed Midnight Run, which Steve actually watched for the first time last night. Didn't you, Steve?
I did, yes.
Yep, hugely popular favourite with everyone. And Jon was about to enter the 1990s and a diverse range of roles to follow. So once again, joining us this Christmas week in Colorado, welcome back, Jon Ashton.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Andrew. And happy Merry Christmas and happy holidays, and whatever holiday you're celebrating, have a good time doing it.
Oh, yes. We're all off to number 10 Downing Street later.
Yes. You hear that, Boris? No, but it's really, really good to have you back, Jon. Andy's absolutely right. We had a ton of great feedback from the first time that you came on, and we just couldn't wait to get you back on. And just
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I had a good time with you guys, and we talked about a lot of good stuff, I think, and I'm happy to be back.
Well, as I say, it's good to have you because obviously, from what we know, you have been a little bit ill this past month, practically throughout November, kind of like myself. But you actually kind of caught pneumonia on your return back from your Comic-Con appearance. So are you all right now? Is everything in the clear?
Well, I'm about 80%. Yeah, I'm a little weak still, but all the pneumonia is all cleared up, and I had some bleeding ulcers, and I don't want to get into all of it, but November was not a very good month for me, and I was in the hospital a few days, and but they got everything taken care of, I think, and now I'm just trying to get my strength and my energy back. So so far so good, and I'm on the mend. So looking forward to playing some more golf and doing some more movies and all that good stuff, and talking to you.
That's awesome too. We're really, really glad that you've been able to come through to the other side of that one. Yeah. Going back to the con very briefly, you met with Ronnie Cox there, who played your captain in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. How was it meeting up with him again?
Well, it was great. I mean, I see Judge a lot, because we do some Comic-Cons over in Stuttgart and Edinburgh and London and all over the States and stuff. But I hadn't seen Ronnie in quite a while, so we had breakfast every morning, and he actually performed because he's doing a lot of country western music now, and that's what he really is focusing on. And it was great to see him, and he was supposed to do a show Saturday night. We had a bomb scare at the convention, and we had to clear out the whole convention and stood out in the rain for 2 days, and or for 2 hours, I mean, and maybe that's where I got my pneumonia. Who knows? But anyway,
that probably was.
That kind of screwed up Ronnie's show, so he was a little taken back by that. Because he was really looking forward to doing a performance, and during the 2 hours of rain, a lot of people left, and so it was too bad. But yeah, Ronnie, we told stories, and I saw Michael Beck, and I saw a bunch of old friends there, and we had breakfast every morning and chatted about our lives and what we've been doing. And like I say, Ronnie's just concentrating on his country music now. So anyway, it was great seeing everybody.
Ronnie is probably the focus of the single worst piece of TV censorship in history, with his editing of RoboCop on ITV on British television back in the 90s. So if nothing else, I think he's probably glad that that's not going on anymore.
You've got to explain this now for all the viewers, but I think it was when it was on ITV, right?
Yeah.
And the British standards would basically censor movies, but they would dub over the voices of any swearing with someone who sounds nothing like them. Nothing like them at all. And Ronnie Cox has this scene with Miguel Ferrer in the bathroom. This is the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're in the bathroom, and he's saying, I used to call the old man names. I used to call him, even once called him Airhead, and instead of arsehole, and it just sounds so wrong. To be honest as well, Jon, you've probably been dubbed over as well during Beverly Hills Cop going on TV.
Oh yeah, I remember I was in France. I was in Paris, in 1989, I believe it was. I was doing a movie with Gerard Depardieu over there, and on the TV one night was uh, some show. I can't even remember what show it was, but it was dubbed over with in French and stuff, and the guy didn't sound at all like me. But and he was speaking in French too, so I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. So he could have been saying anything. My lines could have been changed totally. But but anyway, it was kind of interesting. One time I was in, I think, the south of France somewhere, and there was some Spanish television station and some show I was on, and they had some Spanish guy dubbing my voice, and it's kind of weird to watch that. But anyway.
Well, as we ended the talk on the 80s, you'd come out of Midnight Run and you took a role in a TV series called Hardball, which was doing the odd couple police detective routine, this time with Richard Tyson as the beefcake and you as the more straight edge cop. And how did you go from being in all these hit movies and suddenly kind of back to a TV role, partnering up on this kind of show?
Well, strangely enough, we were just talking about the film with Gerard Depardieu. I did that right after Midnight Run, and the director of the film in Paris, anyway, he wanted me to do this film in France, and I played an American film director in the film, Adolph Green, and there were a lot of people, a lot of Americans in it. But anyway, Midnight Run happened to open in France, in Paris, at the time I was shooting over there. But it opened at the same time The Last Temptation of Christ opened. And there was a big brouhaha about The Last Temptation of Christ. And I don't know if you remember that, but...
Yeah.
And they opened Midnight Run and The Last Temptation of Christ in the same theater in Paris. So I'm coming home from work. With my driver, and I pull up to my street. I had an apartment right on the left bank, and I see bonfires and police and everything all over the place in front of this theater. And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, they're protesting The Last Temptation of Christ, and they're burning the film in the middle of the street." And it happened to be the same theater Midnight Run was playing in. So I went, "Oh, great," So anyway, Gerard said to me, well, and they have a Deauville Film Festival with American films, and Gerard asked me if I was going to it, and I said, well, I don't know. And anyway, I got in touch with a few people, so I ended up going to the Deauville Film Festival, and it was just me and De Niro and Marty Brest at the festival, and then they all came to Paris, and we went out and had dinner there and had a great time. So I come back to the United States after all that, and my favorite getaway place was always Carmel up in Monterey Bay, California. We're at Pebble Beach because I'm a golfer. So I go up there, and that's my getaway. When I finish a film, I used to always go up there and play golf for a week or two. Well, while I was there, my agent called and said, they want you to do this TV series. And I said, absolutely not. I have no desire to do a TV series. Well, you know how that goes. Every 2 seconds my phone was ringing and they upped the price and all this other stuff, and actually I read the script and it wasn't bad, but I said, I'm not in, I got a good film career going here and I'm not interested in doing a TV series. And they kept begging me, and it went on for days, I'm telling you. And they wanted me to come back to LA, and I said, no, I got a tea time tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I'm not coming back to LA. So anyway, they begged me, and they kept offering me more money and more this and more that. And it was a guaranteed 13 episodes. And NBC was like, they just wouldn't leave me alone. So I ended up, after all was said and done, and, the money starts talking, and unfortunately, it does. And my son was 4 years old at the time, and I thought, well, this will pay for his college, and and I kept thinking of all the practical reasons of doing this series. And to tell you the truth, I mean, when you do a television series, Brian Dennehy, who was a good friend of mine, did a TV series with him and a little kid. And it got canceled after 6 or 7 shows. I mean, Hardball we were guaranteed 13 episodes, and we got great reviews, and and everybody loved the show. But they put it on Friday night against Dallas, which was the #1 show at the time, so we didn't have a prayer. But anyway, Brian Dennehy, you know, he had a good film career going. He did this series and folded in his film career kind of. So he was on the Carson show one night, and he said, you know, when you do a TV series, when it's over, I think they send you to a little island somewhere. And he said, he said, I think Troy Donahue's the president of the island, you know, and you know, that's Denny. He's funny. But it's true. I mean, you get done with, you know, there's a stigma about that, you know, and, you know, if you do a TV series, you better have hope it goes 5 or 8 years so you can put the money in the bank and live on it the rest of your life, because your career makes a whole different change. I mean, you know, there's parts of me that wish I never did it, you know, because my film career was going so well then. And then it took me a long time to get back on track and, you know, get back into doing films and stuff. So, but you know, doing the TV series is feast or famine, you know. And if you do one and it folds, then everybody thinks you're a failure, you know. And if you do one and it's a hit, then you're known for that show, you know, and you can't break away from it. It's sort of like being Taggart in Beverly Hills Cop. I mean, I can't break away from that, but you know, I kind of accept it and enjoy it. And of course, you know, Judge and I would like to work together again, but nobody's ever going to hire us, because as soon as they see us on film, they go Taggart and Rosewood, you know, and they can't believe we'll be anybody else. So it's sort of a twisty kind of turny thing doing a series, and you know, and I'm telling you, it was some tough work. I mean, we were working 14, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I mean, it's just miserable. It's really a tough thing to do, especially when you're starring in it. I was in every scene, so I never got a break. There's parts of me that wish I'd never done it, but I did the best I could, and which I just look at the job and say I do my job and do the best I can. And you know, and Brandon Tartikoff happened to be the head of NBC at the time, and I went to a Dodger game with him, and I said, why don't you put us on Thursday night or Wednesday night and let us get an audience? You're putting us on Friday against Dallas. We don't have a prayer. And he said, well, you're my best show of the season, so I'm putting you in my toughest time slot. So, I mean, you start to understand that, you know, television a little bit. I mean, these people that do a hit TV series and they walk around with their head up in the clouds, you know, you want to look at them and say, you know, hey, lighten up. You know, you got a good time slot. That's it. You're not the greatest actor in the world. You got a good time slot. So chill out, will you? You know, so it's just that stigma of television. And I remember Johnny Russo on the pilot was the guest star, and Johnny and I were friends, and Johnny was friends with De Niro. Well, he came to the set to start working, and he had just come back from New York, and he said, yeah, I saw Bobby in New York. And he said, what the hell is John doing a series for? And I said, well, they're paying me good money, you know. So, you know, I kind of regret it in a way, but, you know, it is what it is, and I have to move on. So it was a good show. It was a good show. And when we got substituted a few nights, and we were on Wednesday night, and we were like #2 in the ratings. But we didn't, you know, so it's just all time slots and, you know, all that stuff. It's advertising, and it's a whole different ball game to me. I mean, anyway, I'd like to stick with stage and film, and that's it.
Well, the weird thing is that now it's kind of changed, and you're getting a lot of big names doing TV and just hopping back and forth. I mean, you look at something like Hannibal, you had Mads Mikkelsen, you had Lawrence Fishburne, and then you've got a whole raft of people doing things like NCIS and what's the other one, CSI and
CSI, yeah. I see a lot of guest stars. They do a lot of guest stars on them, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just pity that he didn't manage to last. But Hardball was seen as a Lethal Weapon style show, and it's still being done to this day. Was it weird that the show was kind of aping Lethal Weapon, when at the same time you've come from that background of Beverly Hills Cop?
No, I mean, it was a buddy movie, I mean, and that formula has worked for a long time. I didn't feel anything toward Lethal Weapon. I mean, I liked the show. I thought it was a good movie. I didn't bother me. They do what I do what I do. They do what they do. I liked Lethal Weapon. I watched both of them. The third one was a little weird, but the first two were pretty cool. Sort of like Beverly Hills Cop. The first two were good. The third one was weird. So.
Yeah, they played with the cast too much.
It's funny enough now that they have done a Lethal Weapon series, which is very bizarrely kind of like Hardball in a way. If you've actually seen the series, you can actually look it up. It's the same kind of thing. But the difference being, I mean, your character was apparently modeled after Pete Rose.
Pete Rose?
Is that right? Yeah. I read somewhere online that your character in Hardball was apparently patterned after Pete Rose.
Huh. Well, I never heard that, but anyway, that's cool. No, they
never told you
me.
that one. But were you a baseball fan?
Oh yeah, I played baseball. I played Little League ball and actually went to the state championships as a pitcher. So yeah, I'm a big baseball fan. But I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. So
he should. Yeah.
But I never heard that.
Well, he's in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he and The Rock, right?
He's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know if you know Goose Gossage. He was a relief pitcher for the Yankees, and he's a friend of mine, and he lives in Colorado Springs, actually. And I went to his inauguration for the Hall of Fame, and I went into Cooperstown, and they have the big building there with all this stuff, And Pete Rose, they do have a plaque in there that it's kind of like an what do you call it? A sidebar kind of saying he had so many hits and he actually led. So there is a little plaque that says he had the most hits. I mean, so there is a little thing about him in the Hall of Fame. Okay. But which I thought was kind of interesting, the most hits of anybody, So, but he should be in the Hall of Fame.
We're going to have to start a petition. How far through the series were you when you got word that it would only end up having the one season?
Actually, we did 18 shows. We did the first 13. We did a pilot in 13. And then right around Christmas time, David Hemmings, who was one of the producers and directed every other episode, and David was a good friend of mine, David called me over the holidays and said, well, I got good news and bad news. And I said, what? And he goes, the good news is we got picked up for 5 more shows. And the bad news is we got picked up for 5 more shows. I mean, it was, anyway, so we ended up doing 18 episodes. We did another 5 after that. But then it was canceled. And I remember, I'll never forget it, John Ashley was one of the producers on the show. And they had one episode where Richard and I go undercover, and they had Richard in a dress. So we go undercover, and he's dressed up as a woman. He's got a dress on and stuff. And it was a pretty funny episode. And Richard refused to wear the dress. He refused. He said, no. He said, as long as my father's alive, I'm never putting a dress on, whatever that meant. But I said to him, Richard, come on. And I kept trying to talk him into it. I said, look at, man, Tom Hanks wore a dress, and look at his career. I mean, come on, man. This is about acting. It has nothing to do with it's acting, man. And he refused to do it. So when we got the word from the network that we got canceled, John Ashley looked at Richard and said, if you'd have put that damn dress on, we'd still be on the air.
Hey, it worked for Dustin Hoffman. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Come on, man. I kept telling him, you're an actor, man. You got to do this. And then I offered to do it. I said to John, I'll do it. I'll put the dress on. And he goes, no, you can't do it. You can't do it.
Oh, that would have been funny, especially if you kept the mustache.
I know. But
Well, In 1991, you made a small uncredited appearance in John Hughes' last movie, Curly Sue. So how did this come about? Was this a favor to John?
Yeah, because I had done 2 films for him. I did Some Kind of Wonderful for him, and She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon. And he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, would you do a little cameo for me on this?" And I said, "Sure." And I flew to Chicago for a day and did it. And it was just a favor of John. I mean, John and I got along great. And he was famous for that. If you see Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, Kevin Bacon does a cameo in the beginning of that,
Yeah.
where he beats Steve Martin out of the cab. It was fun. And Kelly Lynch, who I did the cameo with, I did one scene with her in that film. About 6 months or 8 months after that, maybe a year, I get a call to do a pilot for a series, and it was with Kelly Lynch. And Kelly wanted me to do so I did the pilot, and it never sold, but anyway.
Okay, then, well, in 1993, you once again don a uniform to play Trooper Butcher Duggan in the Stephen King miniseries, The Tommyknockers, which has gone on to cult status now. And although it was set in Maine, as many of Stephen King's stories are, it was actually shot in New Zealand. So how was the shift to shooting in such a gloriously scenic country?
Well, I loved it over there. I had a great time in Auckland. It was different. It was like it was beautiful country. I mean, you get outside of the city and the countryside's gorgeous, and the people there were pretty boisterous, and they were pretty nice. And and I played golf one day with Cliff DeYoung, and something I'd never seen before. It said, "Beware of quicksand," and I went, "Oh my God!" Never saw that before on a golf course.
Oh, those traps are getting worse, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, don't hit it! Don't hit it left! Don't hit it left! Anyway, but I had a great time in Auckland. Made some friends over there, and yeah, it was fun. The film was pretty interesting. Jimmy Smits and Mark Helgenberger and myself, Eli Wallach. Anyway, we had a good time.
Only 6 years before Lord of the Rings as well.
Right.
Yes, true. Apparently, this was down to, at the time, I guess it was cheaper to film in New Zealand instead of the US. Was it originally set to be filmed in the US at any point?
That I don't know. And I really don't know why they went to New Zealand. I assume it's budget-wise, because it was a 4-hour miniseries, two-hour miniseries. So we were there for a while, and I'm assuming it was all budget. The same reason everybody was going to Canada for a while, because you got great tax breaks and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that's what it was. But what do I know? I'm just a dumb actor. They tell me where to go, I go. I don't ask those questions. Wait, why are you going to New Zealand, by the way?
I think a lot of actors could probably say the same thing. Oh, we're filming in Ontario, but it's supposed to be like the Sahara Desert. Okay, whatever, you can make it work.
Oh, sure. Well, look at Yellowstone. It's supposed to be Montana, but they're shooting in Utah. Well, not anymore. They finally moved it to Montana because their tax breaks ran out in Utah or something. I don't know. But
around this time, Beverly Hills Cop 3 is being primed, which we did discuss on your last visit, but you had committed to Little Big League, so you didn't take part. Now, this was a movie where you got to reunite with Midnight Run's Dennis Farina, and you have a real fondness for this movie. So are sports-centered movies a personal favorite for you?
Yeah. I mean, man, look at Kevin Costner. How many sports movies he's done? I mean, he's done a ton of them. He's done baseball. He just did one about the draft in football, and it's called The Draft, I think, actually. And but look how many sports movies Costner has done, and they're all good. I mean. So I like sports movies. If some of them, not all of them, but if they're good, I like them. But there's some of them that are pretty weird. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Doing Little Big League. Being on the field and And then meeting all the professional athletes that came in, the professional ball players that came in to do one-day cameos in the movie, was a blast. It was just fun meeting all those guys. And the funny thing is, Ken Griffey Jr. came in for a day, and he ended up being there for 2 or 3 days. And he sort of had an attitude the first couple of hours, when he was there, but I'll tell you, at the end of the first day and the second day, he was having a blast with all of us and stuff, and he really fit right in. He was having a great time. But anyway, it was fun. And he had that scene at the end where he jumps up on the wall and catches the home run and saves the game and all that stuff. And so they did it one time, and all he did was throw a ball up there, and he had to go up against the wall and catch it. And so he did it, and they said, "Okay, that's good. Let's go." And he said, "No, I'll do it again. Let me do it again." And the producers went, "No, we got it. He goes, "No, I want to do it again." So he did it like 3 or 4 times, and the producers were freaking out, thinking, "Man, if he twists an ankle or something and ruins his career, we're gonna, get sued by the Seahawks or something, or the Mariners." I mean, anyway, it was pretty funny.
Well, speaking of pretty funny, let's get a bit festive. In 1994, you returned to work with our mutual friend, George Gallo, in the Christmas caper Trapped in Paradise. Now,
right.
I have a soft spot for this movie. And from speaking with George last night, it was quite a surprise that it was actually not as fun a movie as it looks on screen.
It was brutal. It was probably the toughest movie I've ever done. It was actually, George called me when I was doing a little big league. I was in Minnesota, and George called me and said, "Hey man, I want you to do this movie." And I said, "All right." So right after Little Big League, I went and did Trapped in Paradise. And literally, we finished Little Big League like in November. And in December, I was in Canada shooting Trapped in Paradise like a month later. And it was like the coldest winter in Canada that they had in like 200 years or something. And it was brutal. It was brutal. 20 below, 25 below. And, the cameras would freeze, and we were all bundled up. And and Niagara on the Lake is beautiful. And we filmed all over Canada, but mainly we filmed there, and it was actually snowing, but the camera wasn't reading the snow. So they put these fake snow potato things, in a snow machine, where they potato flakes, so the camera would pick up the snow, and then it would mix with the real snow, and it was like walking. Then it was like walking in mashed potatoes, man. It was like it was unbelievable. It was just, and it was so cold, and oh man, it was the toughest shoot I've ever been on. It was brutal, but it was fun. But it was fun, So now I'm shooting this thing in 1994 with Lovitz, right? And he's in the back seat, and in between takes, he looks at me and he goes, "Well, John, how is it working with me again?" And I said, "Well, John, since I worked with you last, I worked with De Niro, Gerard Depardieu, Eddie Murphy, and now I'm working with you again. I think my career's going downhill."
Apparently, according to Jon Lovitz, the cast was so burnt out on the movie that they nicknamed it "Trapped in Bullshit." Is that right?
It might be. I never heard it, but I don't doubt it. It was. I'm telling you, it was. We were trapped. I'll tell you, but it wasn't paradise. But George was great. George was great. I love George. I mean, we were friends from Midnight Run and stuff. So. Ask George, when you talk to George, ask him about our train trip from Flagstaff to LA at Christmas time.
Oh, I'm noting that one down now.
Oh yeah, we had a Christmas break, and we were in Flagstaff, so we had a week off for Christmas. And George won't fly, so he was going to take the train from Flagstaff to LA, and I said, "Well, I'll take the train with you." So we took the overnight train from Flagstaff to LA, and it was a blast.
Well, moving on, you escaped paradise And in 1995, you actually co-starred in a little movie that I remember, but I don't think many people would remember. And it's a movie where you acted as the partner of Dolph Lundgren. And it was a movie called The
Yes.
Shooter, or Hidden Assassin in some countries.
Right. They kept changing it.
Yeah, it was directed by First Blood's Ted Kotcheff. And this was somewhat of a more serious role in comparison to your kind of lovable characters. What appealed about this project?
Well, Ted Kotcheff got a hold of me, and actually Ted was one of the producers on SVU, Law and Order, that I did. Ted wanted me to do. He was trying to find a role for me that would be an extended role in SVU, but it never was. But anyway, Ted got a hold of me, and he sent me the script, and we shot it in Prague. And Dolph was great to work with. We had a great time, and it was a very underrated movie. I don't think it really got the publicity it should have gotten, but because it was a pretty cool movie, And Prague was just unbelievable to work in. What a beautiful city. I think it's a better movie. I think it should have been,
yeah, it is
been out there
movie.
more, but Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing with acting. You go do your job, and then you don't know what studio's gonna do with it. I got a good friend of mine who was a terrific musician, and he got signed by a studio as their first artist, and he laid down this album with all these great musicians and stuff, and then they never released it, and the recording end of the studio went defunct, and his album to this day sits on a shelf somewhere.
No.
And they won't sell it. They won't give it to anybody else because they don't want to, get fired for giving up a hit album. And that album to this day sits on the shelf at that studio. So you never know. You go do your work, and then you leave it all up to these guys to determine where your career goes.
So, dead quick one. Were you present for Dolph's hamstring injury during the shooting, and did it affect the way that the movie was made moving forwards?
Yeah, I was, and no, man, he was a trooper, man. He actually, I don't know if you remember the scene, but we're inside the apartment, and he actually went out on that ledge. He went out on a ledge to shoot that scene, and I wouldn't do it, but they had stunt guys to do it. And he said, speaking of stunt guys, this one stunt guy almost killed me on that movie. He was he was a Czech guy. He didn't speak English, and we had a fight in the wine cellar. I don't know if you remember that fight I have in the wine cellar with that big guy. Well, this guy was just a big guy. He was a wrestler, I think, in Czechoslovakia or something. So they had him come in to do this scene, and they yelled action, and this guy tackled me and squeezed my chest. I thought I was going to die. I mean, this guy almost killed me. So I finally looked at Ted and I said, would you tell him this? We're acting. We're acting here. This guy's going to kill me.
Apparently, Miramax, who are distributing the film, I hear that they cut something like 15 minutes of character development from that movie prior to its release. Did your scenes suffer as a result from that?
I don't remember that, but I don't. You know what? I don't even think I have a copy of that movie, so I should probably get one somewhere. See, I don't see my movies, so I see them once and that's it. And if there's no premiere, I don't know if I'll ever see it. There's stuff I've done that I've never seen.
Are you one of these actors that don't like seeing themselves on screen, or is it just that once you've seen it, it's like, okay, there, I'm done? And
well, no, I don't. I'm too critical. I see things that I should have done, or I'm too critical. It bothers me. So I see it once and I go, okay, that's it. And I remember the first film I did, I was still in theater school at USC, and some independent producer wanted me to do this film, and it was a terrible movie. It never got released, but I had never done film before. I was doing theater all the time, so it was a good experience. I wanted the experience to learn how to do film, and in those days they had dailies because everything was on film, and then they would develop the film, and then the next day they would watch it, the stuff we shot the day before. And they had all the scenes. There wasn't cut. It was just, everything that was shot. And the director said, you want to come to the dailies? And I said, yeah, that'd be cool, because I was trying to learn. And I sat there and watched every take. and some of them were horrid. And and I just looked at that and I'm like, oh my God, I'll never work in this business again. Oh my God. I was so depressed and I was just going, oh, no, I'll never do. So I've never done that again. And Marty Brest, when we were doing Beverly Hills Cop, he asked me one day, you want to come to dailies? I said, no, Marty, I don't do that. And blah, blah, blah. And then finally, my last scene that I shot in Cop, and I was finished on the film. And Marty said, you want to go to dailies now? And I said, okay, I'm done on the film, so I don't care. So, and I sat there for like 5 minutes and left. But no, I'm too critical. I see things I should have done or shouldn't have done. And why didn't I do this? And I think I told you, I gave that line to Anthony Hopkins, acting 101, that's when you think of all the things you should have done on the 101 freeway in Hollywood, so. I've seen it once. I can't change it. It's over. Move on.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Anthony Hopkins. Sir Anthony Hopkins, yes. Because he's a very Shakespearean actor. Now, but can you remember the classic Hamlet line from the film that Andrew just seems to quote at least once a month when suitable?
From the shooter.
No.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite sayings that was delivered by John Ashton in the movie. And I've used this line for so many people. And it's a line where John says, the only time self-doubt is useful when you're starring fucking Hamlet. And that is one of John Ashton's lines from The Shooter. And I have used that line so many times to give people.
I don't even remember. Oh, really? Now, what's the line again? What's the line? I don't remember that. What's the line again?
Yeah, the only time self-doubt is useful is when you're starring in fucking Hamlet. And it's something you and Dolph Lundgren are in a car just driving along, and it's a line that you say, and that line stayed with me forever. That's one of the best lines that ever.
That's a good line. I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. So you're going to have to go and find the movie again now.
Yeah.
Even I want to watch it again.
Yeah. I'm going to have to get a copy of the movie to see it, I guess. Right? So what we going to say about Anthony Hopkins?
No, that was just a segue to get onto Hamlet.
Nice segue.
He's a very Shakespearean actor, yes.
Well, I thought you were going to go into Instinct, but that's later on. Right?
We're getting there, but we've got a few more stops on this journey. Some you might not want to take, but we'll take them anyway. So around the time of The Shooter, you also appeared in the incredibly popular show Jag in the same year. I think it was only for one episode. And I bring this up because you shared the episode with Tracy Needham, who played Meg Austin. And I've got to say hi, Tracy, and your husband, Tommy Hinckley, as well. And Tracy.
Hi, Tracy and Tommy.
Yeah. So, Tracy, we would love to see you here one week. But how was Jag as a gig?
I loved it. I had a great time. And I don't know, this is a piece of trivia. The character that Mark Harmon plays on CSI or whatever that is, NCIS, that was my character.
No.
That was my character in Jag.
Oh,
and that's a piece of trivia that I read somewhere, and it said, "Do you know that Mark Harmon's character was actually created by John Ashton on an episode of Jag?"
Oh, that is awesome!
It's a Jaggyverse.
Yeah,
eat that, Marvel. Jag did it first.
That's great. I could just imagine that actually. You playing the Gibbs role in NCIS going forward. I could easily picture that, yeah.
Yeah, on Jag, I play the NCIS guy, that guy. And then they did the series, and Mark Harmon did it, and it was the same producer. And I want to call a producer. I said, why don't you give me the series instead of Mark Harmon? No, I'm kidding. And I never knew that. I read that in a newspaper somewhere, that role was originally made by me. So,
wow.
You know what? Now that that's been brought up, we need somebody to substantiate this. So if you are listening to this and you worked on that episode of Jag, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
Clear it up.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to hear too.
Yeah. Well, going from something that you love to hear about to one you probably prayed we would not bring up, but here we are.
Uh-oh.
John, Meet the Deedles.
Yikes! Yikes! That goes right in there with The Last Resort, I think. Kind of one I don't talk about too much.
Well, it also kind of ties in with Tammy and the T-Rex from Ellen Dubin's episode. How many movies are we going to bring up from Paul Walker's early days that make them wish that we didn't?
Paul was a great guy, so Meet the Deedles that goes along with King Kong Lives and The Last Resort and stuff. So anyway,
I can't believe
what happened, John?
I can't believe we forgot about King Kong Lives. We need to go back to the 80s quick.
Yeah. No, we skimmed over that kind of nicely, I thought. I thought you were being kind to me by skipping it.
So, John, did you love King Kong Lives? I look at my house and think, yes, I love King Kong Lives.
It's like that story that Dennis Hopper used to say about why he took the part of Cooper.
Oh, in Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers. And he said that his 6-year-old son came to him one day and said, "Dad, why were you in that terrible movie?" And he said, "Well, it was so that I could buy you shoes." And his son apparently looked back up at him and went, "I don't need shoes that bad."
Yeah, well, that's kind of like hardball, I kept thinking, well, that'll put my kid through college, so, But Meet the Deedles, that was we shot that in Utah, and it was not very good. Paul Walker, the cast, everybody was great, and Steve Boyum, the director, he actually one of my stunt guys on Hardball, the director of Meet the Deedles, yeah. So, but we had a great time, and same thing with King Kong Lives. We had a great time shooting it. I mean, Wilmington, North Carolina was great. Utah was great. We had a great time shooting it, but it didn't come out very well. But I mean, I had to, and I'm not crazy about heights, and I had to rappel off of this cliff and Meet the Deedles, and I, and that was like a 500-foot cliff. I mean, it was a cliff. It wasn't just a little drop. It was a cliff. And I had a couple of lines of dialogue with Paul. I think it was Paul or Steve, either one. So I had to do it. So for 2 days, the stunt guys brought me out and taught me how to rappel and get the rope right and do all that stuff on this little rock, So then the day came that I had to do it. And I said, okay. And so I and they had set up a plank with the cameras, everything about halfway down the cliff. So we had to rappel all the way down there and then do our dialogue and everything. Anyway, I get to the top of the cliff and I start to look down and the stunt guy goes, don't look, just jump. And I couldn't sleep for 2 days before that. It was the same thing happened in King Kong Lives. I had a scene with Linda Hamilton out on the edge of this cliff, and they had a helicopter over us and a rain machine blowing on us. And it was about a 1,000-foot cliff. We were shooting in the Smokies in Tennessee, and I was scared to death. I mean, scared to death.
It sounded fun. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, it wasn't fun at all. And when that helicopter, and we were right on the edge of the cliff, and we had dialogue, and this rain machine hit us, and I had read an article that Kurt Russell had to do a scene in the rain, and he insisted that they heat the water. And I thought, oh man, give me a break. Heat the water. What are you, crazy? Come on, man. Man up. Heat the water. So now I'm doing this scene on this rock, this cliff, and King Kong Lives. And they got the water out of this spring well down below. And man, that water hit me and I froze. I mean, I couldn't even talk. I went, oh my God. Oh. So then all of a sudden I went, Kurt, I learned something from you now, man. I know what you're saying now. And then the helicopter starts blowing and the whole cliff starts shaking. And it was miserable. It was miserable.
Well, and speaking of Meet the Deedles, obviously it was one of Paul Walker's early movies around Tammy and the T-Rex. But sadly, it was the last for another cinematic icon. This was the last movie for Bart the Bear. the bald-headed
Right.
killer bear of Clare County. So,
Right.
yeah. So, what memories do you have of both talents who sadly left us?
Yeah, Bart the Bear was, we shot some scenes, with the bear, but they had these invisible kind of electric fences around, so he could only go certain places. But he was really cool, and then Anthony Hopkins he worked with Bart the Bear on The Edge.
Oh, yeah.
So we were talking about Bart the Bear, and he said, "Yeah, I worked with Bart the Bear on The Edge," and blah blah blah. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, yeah, he was great. I mean, he was really a smart bear. What can I say?
Was it nerve-wracking being that close to such a big animal?
Yeah, it was a little scary, but I mean, he was so smart and his behavior was, I don't know who knows. I guess they could snap anytime, but they had, like I say, they had these invisible wireless fences around, so he could only go a certain distance. Yeah, at least that's what they told us. Some of those guys lie to you, so you'll do stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Oh, don't worry about it. It's totally safe. Don't worry about it.
For an actor, and I can also speak from this myself, the ability to play someone real and historic is taken a lot more seriously. So for you, it would be the role of Ulysses Grant in The Day the Lincoln Was Shot. Now, did you change the way you researched for the role, or how did you approach this differently?
Well, I of course I read up on Grant, and their relationship, his relationship with Lincoln and stuff. So, and Lance Hendrickson, who played Lincoln, we talked about their relationship a lot. And I wish I had more to do on the film and was a little more extensive than that. But yeah, he was a pretty iconic individual, Grant, and I tried to do as much as I could to look like him, and I changed my voice a little bit because he was a heavy cigar smoker, so I tried to do that, and I just tried to work on different aspects of his personal life that carried over into his professional life.
Well, I think we've kind of got to round out the 90s here, obviously, on our journey talking about John Turtletub's Instinct, where you were starring alongside Anthony Hopkins, who's an Oscar winner, recent Oscar winner then, Cuba Gooding Jr., and of course you had Donald Sutherland as well. I mean, this is probably one of the most impressive casts for you to come in and work around. How has this project landed on your doorstep?
Well, John Turteltaub, who directed it, his favorite movie of all time was Midnight Run. They called and he wanted to meet me, and so I went in for the meeting. I had read the script and I read the book. I can't remember the name of the book
Ishmael.
it was taken from, but Ishmael,
Yeah.
right. So I read the book and I did all my homework and stuff. And I had a really hard time justifying my hatred toward Hopkins in the film. And I literally stayed up till 3 or 4 in the morning the night before my meeting with John and everybody else, and I kept racking it through my head. I mean, what justifies me being so mean to this guy? And I finally came up with the answer to myself. So I go into the meeting, and John, just couldn't stop talking about Midnight Run, and I love that movie, and God, you were great in that movie, and there's not a single frame that's bad in that movie. And I mean, he just loved the movie so much. And then he says, "So, well, let's talk about this film." So I said, "Okay." So we start talking about it, and I mean, there must have been probably 15 people in the room, which you don't have anymore, by the way. But anyway, they're all the writers and everybody else, and John and I said, I said I was having a hard time justifying my hatred toward this character, and I finally figured it out. And Turtletop said, "What?" And I said, He is the silverback gorilla, and I'm the silverback gorilla in this prison, and these are my herd, and he's a silverback trying to take over my herd, and that's how I justify my hatred toward him. And Turtle Top stands up in the middle of the room and he says, "That is officially now my idea." So I got the role just from that. So we went to Florida to shoot it, and my first day of work was with Hopkins and Cuba, and we had a scene together. And so I walked in and I just said, "All right, is it Cuba or Cuba?" And he says, "It's Cuba." I said, "All right." I said, "It's Sir Anthony, Mr. Hopkins." And he looked at me and goes, "It's Tony." And I went, "All right, I'm John. Let's go to work." and Tony and I got along, and he was just great. But, I was on the movie for 10 weeks, so we sat around and told stories and stuff. He was fantastic. He was fantastic. And we got a great time. And the funny thing is, there's a scene in the movie where Hopkins is drawing in his cell, and he's got this huge mural in the cell that he's painted. So they go out to the yard for their exercise, and I go in and whitewash the whole thing. And he comes back in, and there's this one shot, and it's him sitting in the cell with all the white walls, and I would just walk over to the bars. And I look through them, and there's just a stare between the two of us. There's no dialogue. And it's just me looking at him saying, "Up yours, pal," one of those looks, So it's just us glaring at one another. So the first take, I walk in, go up to the bars. He looks at me. I look at him. We're staring at one another. And he finally goes, "Hello, Clarice. You're looking very butch today." Well,
love it.
The whole crew just cracked up laughing, So, that's the way Tony was. He was a lot of fun. He's a fun guy.
So,
"Hello, Clarice. You're looking very butch today."
and I suppose, obviously, you've got Cuba there as well. And I think right around the time probably you were going into production, I think his Oscar win was like so fresh.
Right.
And he was obviously a big name. How many of you shouted "Show me the money" to him?
No, I don't think we ever did.
No.
I don't think, maybe once, he had enough of that,
Yeah, judging by the kind of person like Tony sounds, I'm sure that he must have got him with at least one "Show me the money" at some point.
Oh, probably did. He probably did. But, Tony, they were great. Tony was great. And, Cuba and I got along great. And there were some scenes cut out. We had a scene where Tony escapes, and then Cuba and I go out looking for him. And we're in the brush and all this stuff. Well, we were shooting in Florida, and they wanted to shoot this in this real jungly kind of this thing and then Cuba and I were kind of going through the bushes, and it's like 1:00 in the morning or something. So they got the snake wranglers in there, right, to clear out all the snakes where we had to shoot. So Cuba and I are sitting in our chairs, and finally these guys walk out of the jungle where they were, and they said, "Okay, it's all clear." And we looked at one another and went, "Yeah, right. You got all the snakes out of there, didn't you? I'm sure you got all the snakes out of there."
I could just picture that. Yeah, it's all clear. And both of you just went, "Bullshit."
Exactly. Yeah, right. You got all the snakes out of there. Right. And it was not fun laying down in that jungly stuff. We had a couple of lines of dialogue and stuff, but they cut it out of the film.
The gorillas were really really authentic looking. I didn't actually realize at first that they were actually people in suits. And one of them was actually Vern Troyer, who played the baby gorilla. And he went on to do Mini-Me as Austin Powers pretty much in the same year.
Right. Yeah, those suits were unbelievable. You'd be 2 feet from them. You'd swear they were gorillas. They were unbelievable. The makeup and stuff was fantastic.
I guess it was kind of the Planet of the Apes of its day.
Yeah. No, but and these guys walked like that. I mean, they had it down. I mean, you'd swear they were real. It was great.
Yeah, where is Andy Serkis when you need him? At least it wasn't the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
But that's a different story altogether.
Yes. John's there on set saying, if we had this in King Kong Lives...
Yeah, right.
I could have bought 2 houses.
Yeah. Well, I broke my ribs in King Kong Lives on that tank, you know.
Oh my God.
They had the fake arm, you know, the fake gorilla arm, you know, and it was supposed to be hitting me on top of that. And they kept shooting that scene, and every time it hit me, my ribs would go into the turret of the tank, you know, and I ended up busting 3 ribs in there.
God.
So I said to one of the stunt guys, I said, you know, what do you take for that? And they went, grin and bear it, man. Grin and bear it.
I just said, did Jessica Lange grin and bear it? Because I bet it was a lot smoother with her.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it was.
Oh, as always, I mean, we can talk about your career always, and we kind of want to break off on the 90s because we definitely want to bring you back again to talk about the 2000s, you know, because there's another 20 years there, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And another 2 hours worth of material.
But we love having you on.
Yeah.
It is amazing, and it flows so easy.
I got some films out now I'd like to talk about too, but we can talk about that later.
Yes. Well, at the moment, we've got to talk about this week's Nominate 5, Steve.
Now's the time to nominate 5.
Nominate 5?
Yes, nominate 5. Not 3 or 4 or 6 or 9. Now's the time to nominate 5.
Does that sound quieter to you, or is that just me?
That sounded a bit...
No, that was pretty loud to me.
Okay.
I forgot that John didn't have the music last time that we recorded the episodes.
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry for blowing out your eardrums there, John. I really am.
I'm deaf anyway, so it's pretty hard to do that. So. Shooting all those guns over the ears without earplugs, you know, kind of screwed up my ears. So.
Well, for Nominate 5 this week, I wanted to do something a bit different with you, John. To really kind of go back, because your love of theatre, and when we were actually speaking on the first episode, you know, your love of theatre was very apparent. So for your Nominate 5 on this occasion, I wanted to ask you of your top 5 favourite on-stage roles.
My role?
Yes.
Well, number 1 has got to be True West with Ed Harris. Ed Harris and I did True West in 1981. And we both won the Drama Critics Awards for it because it's basically a 2-character play. So they gave it to both of us because they couldn't, you know. So we did that at South Coast Rep in L.A. And Sam Shepard came closing night. Did I tell this story? I don't know if I told this story.
Yeah, but tell it again.
Tell it again.
Go on.
About Ed choking me at the end of the show.
No,
you didn't mention that.
Well, anyway, Sam Shepard had walked out of the original production in New York. So the closing weekend, Friday night, they said, Sam's in the audience. So we freaked out, of course, and then we did the whole show. But it was a good show, and he wasn't there. Make a long story short, he did come closing the last performance Sunday night. And at the end of the play, Eddie wraps a phone cord around my neck and starts strangling me. Well, we had it worked out where he could, because he's behind me and can't see me, we had it worked out where I could get my fingers in between my neck and the cord, and he could squeeze as hard as he wanted, and I could hold it with my fingers. Well, closing night, he missed my neck and got it around my lip, right around my mouth. So he's tugging, and I couldn't grab the cord, and he rips my lips. I mean, just tore my lips, and blood went everywhere. So we're back, and it wasn't his fault, you know. It was just one of those accidents, you know. So we're backstage in our dressing room after, and Sam came back, and he said, "Oh, what a great performance!" And he was really, really kind to us. And then he looks at me, and I was wiping my blood off and stuff, and Sam goes, "How did you guys do that every night?" So we had to tell him it was an accident, Sam. Thank God it was a closing performance. But anyway, okay. True West has to be one of my favorites. A View from the Bridge.
Okay.
I played Tony Carbone in that. God, there's so many of them. Huey, Eugene O'Neill play I did at the Edinburgh Arts Festival in Scotland.
So we need 2 more from you.
Skip Hampton in the last meeting of the Knights of the White Magnolia. We did at the Coronet Theater for 9 months in L.A. It was a big hit play. And Skip Hampton was a lot of fun to play. And I guess maybe Camille in A Flea in Her Ear, a Feydeau French farce. I did that at the Company of Angels in L.A., and I actually won the Drama Critics Award for Best Supporting Actor for that. So,
Wow.
Wow, awesome.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, 9 months is a long run.
It's a very long run.
that was in 1973 I did that.
Well, that's great. That's 5 great choices. We kind of stepped away from movies for it, but all the more impressive to know that you've suffered for your art at the hands of Ed Harris.
Well, Ed and I we were in a theater group at the Met Theater in LA. So Eddie and I have known each other for 35 years. So, and we did Gone Baby Gone together too.
Yes,
so.
and that'll be coming up for the next time that we have you. So
yes, I know. That's 2000s. Yeah.
That ended up in the box, didn't it? That got pulled out.
Yes, it did. Oh yeah,
Yes, it did.
I forgot.
Yes, I've seen one.
Yes, because you hadn't seen it.
I remember
when
that
John was on. So now you've seen it. So now you can give your your little bit of feedback.
Yeah, great.
What now?
No. When we get to the 2000s, when that comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I was gonna say. I'm sure I was kind to that movie. I really was.
Yes.
It was that was 2006. So that's another episode.
Yeah. So, John, what have you got coming up? Have you got any movies that are due to be released, or are you going to work on anything?
There's one on Netflix now that I did with Bruce Dern called Death in Texas.
Cool.
And a movie I did a couple years ago called Once Upon a River. It was taken from a book. I play a hermit that lives on the river, a very different character for me, who takes in this young girl, a runaway girl, and they both help each other out. And it's a really nice story. So I'm talking to a producer now about directing a film. So we'll see what happens with that.
Cool. I'll send you my CV.
You heard him typing out before. That was his rejection letter already.
Never in a million years. Yeah.
Well, I will warn you to turn your volume down because there is one more bit of music coming up. But
okay.
But no, that is fantastic. We're going to go and watch them, and because we want to talk about them on the next time we have you on. I think we've got to have you back for season 3. You might end up being a recurring guest on every season. We'll just bring you in.
I know it.
So,
I know the check's in the mail, so that's okay.
Yes.
Just remember, don't cash it until the year 3000.
Right. Okay. All right.
Cash it when you get your first Beverly Hills Cop 4 check.
Yeah, right. Still waiting to hear on that. That's another thing that's in the horizon. So,
God,
waiting on that.
Come on, Netflix. You know better.
Yeah, really.
Come on.
Really. Well, hopefully
Netflix,
they'll do
Amazon,
the right thing.
Someone. Well, it has been an absolute joy having you back on, John. And like Andy said, hopefully we can get you back for season 3, talk your way through the 2000s and beyond. For now, though, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure. You know that.
Hang on, you got one more section yet, Steve. Play the music.
I was hoping you would have forgotten about that one.
No.
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Wow, that music gets absolutely amazing every single time, Steve.
Yes, it does, Andrew, yes.
Especially when you cue it up the first time and we don't fix it in post. Anyway, what's in the box about?
Okay, what's in the box is the part of the show where Andy just tries to drag me away from my Xbox, which actually I don't get much time to play these days, and tries to improve my movie education by pulling out the name of a film from a box which is going to be certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Now,
don't pull out Last Resort.
I don't even think that's going in the box.
I don't know. I don't even think that's in print anymore. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, if I have seen the movie, then we just keep pulling out names of movies until we find one that I haven't seen, and then I have to go away and watch it the night before we record our next episode. So, Andy.
Yes.
What do you have for me this week?
Well, I got a nice...
Please be a short one.
It is kind of a short one. It's a nice festive one. It's the original 1973 movie, The Wicker Man. You've not seen it, have you?
I have seen it.
Oh, you have seen it? Oh, well.
I have actually seen The Wicker Man.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, the original one, Christopher Lee.
Yes. Okay.
You know.
Edward Woodward.
Iwa Woo-wah. I've seen it, yeah.
Okay. Well, your second one is a 2005 movie called Brick with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay. Well, that's what you're watching over Christmas. Oh, you're going to enjoy that.
Okay.
It's a good thriller. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Christmas, and we want to thank you for tuning in on your Christmas week. We want to thank John for joining us on Christmas week, or at least a couple of weeks before. It's always a pleasure having you here. And the good news is that in the new year, we at Poddywood have a little gift for everyone. Don't we, Steve?
Yes.
Because we had to go and do a bit of acting, didn't we, Steve?
Yes.
And that's all we're going to say on that. You're just going to have to wait until January in our lead into season 3. But
yeah, and you're going to be able to find it on. Is that going to be going onto the YouTube channel?
It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on the Facebook page. Yeah, but mainly YouTube to share it out.
Yeah.
But we shall let you know. But in the meantime, I guess we're kind of out of here. And you look after yourself, John.
Okay.
And we will see you again very shortly.
Okay, great. And you guys have a great holiday, and all your listeners have a great holiday too.
You two, all the best, and enjoy the merriment of the season. And to all of you listening out there in podcast land, the same goes for you. Be safe over Christmas. Enjoy it. Spend some time with your loved ones. Drink some eggnog, or just
whiskey.
Go out and or whiskey. I know what I'm going to be drinking. Definitely the whiskey. And stay safe, and we will see you in the new year.
Now we've finished our podcast. Ho, ho, ho.